Some decisions inside a royal household happen loudly, with statements and cameras. Others slip out quietly, buried deep in a financial report that almost nobody reads all the way through. This was the second kind. In the summer of 2024, a single line inside an accounting document did something no press release ever intended. It revealed that Prince William had quietly removed a woman who had served the royal estates for almost 20 years. And she was not just any employee. She was Queen Camilla's own younger sister. Her name is Annabel Elliot. To most of the public she was invisible, a background figure who never sought the spotlight. But inside the walls of the royal properties, her fingerprints were everywhere. Charles hired Elliot as the chief designer of his estates in 2005, shortly after the then Prince of Wales married Camilla. For nearly 2 decades, she shaped the look and feel of some of the most important homes in the Duchy of Cornwall's vast portfolio. And then, without any grand announcement, that arrangement simply ended. Fox News. What made this so striking was not just the decision itself, but the silence around it. There was no farewell, no Chinese letter tribute, nothing that a normal retirement might bring. Instead, the integrated annual report confirmed that the designer's services were not used for the 2023 to 2024 period. A working relationship that had lasted almost 20 years had quietly gone cold, and the paperwork was the only witness. Hello. For a family that guards its private matters with almost military discipline, this was a rare crack in the wall. People began to ask the obvious questions. Why would William let go of a trusted designer who happened to be his stepmother's sister? Was this about money, about power, about a new king's heir stamping his own authority on a centuries-old machine? Or was there something more personal hidden beneath the polite official language? The answers, as it turned out, were more layered than the dramatic headlines suggested. Because this was not a simple story of one relative pushing out another. It was a story about a young duke trying to reshape a giant institution, about 2 sisters bound by a lifetime of loyalty, and about the delicate, unspoken tensions that run through even the most powerful family in Britain. To understand why this small line in a report caused such a stir, you first have to understand exactly who Annabel Elliot was, and just how deeply woven she had become into the fabric of royal life. To understand the weight of William's decision, you have to look back at how central Annabel Elliot had become. She was never a stranger brought in from outside. She was family, and she was talented, and for years those two things worked perfectly together. Long before she ever touched a royal property, Annabel had built her own reputation. An accomplished interior designer, she was recognized for her distinctive style and her ability to blend contemporary and traditional elements seamlessly. That skill is exactly what caught the eye of the royal household. When Charles married Camilla, he did not just gain a wife. He gained a sister-in-law whose professional gift matched a very real need across his sprawling estates. The Royal Observer. Her work was not decorative fluff. It was serious, hands-on, and spread across the country. Elliot's work included decorating and updating the Duchy of Cornwall's rental holiday cottages in Cornwall, Wales, and the Isles of Scilly. She was trusted with major projects too. She was tapped to oversee the refurbishment of a large pub in the King's Poundbury development in Dorset, and also oversaw the conversion of 2 cottages and a lodge for guests at Dumfries House in Scotland. These were not small jobs handed out as a favor. They were significant responsibilities across a portfolio worth billions. Fox News. And the arrangement was, in its own way, quietly lucrative. According to reporting, Elliot earned several £100,000 for her services over the years, paid through the Duchy of Cornwall. For a nearly 20-year relationship, that was the natural result of steady, ongoing work. But it also meant that when scrutiny came, there was a paper trail, and paper trails inside the royal accounts have a way of becoming headlines. Fox News. Beyond the professional side, there was the deeply personal thread running through all of it. Annabel and Camilla are not distant siblings who see each other on holidays. They are close, genuinely close. The two sisters are very close and attended Wimbledon together the month before the news broke. Their bond stretches back to a childhood that both of them have described with unusual warmth. Now to love. Annabel once spoke about those early years with real tenderness, remembering a home without nannies, full of animals and easy affection, where their mother drew everyone toward her. That shared history made the sisters more than relatives. It made them lifelong allies. Annabel understood Camilla in a way few people could, and she has spoken publicly about how important Charles became to her sister's life, describing the couple as opposites who somehow fit together perfectly. So when William made his move, he was not simply adjusting a business contract on a spreadsheet. He was touching a relationship stitched together by blood, by decades of loyalty, and by a designer's long service to the family that had welcomed her in. That is precisely why a quiet accounting note could not stay quiet for long. If Annabel represented loyalty and long service, then William represented something newer and sharper, a determination to run the duchy his own way. And that difference is where the real story lives. When William inherited the title of Duke of Cornwall after Queen Elizabeth's death, he did not just inherit a name. He inherited an enormous financial responsibility, and he approached it like a man with a plan. His approach to managing the duchy appeared to be marked by a focus on modernizing and streamlining operations, including reassessing roles and responsibilities within the organization. He was not content to let the machine run exactly as it always had. The royal observer. That mindset shaped how he saw every arrangement, even ones with deep family roots. The official reasoning behind Annabel's departure was strikingly practical. Sources indicated William believed her work across the estate was considered complete and that the current staff had learned sufficiently from her. In other words, the job was done, the knowledge had been passed on, and continuing the contract no longer made sense to him. It was the logic of an efficiency-minded leader, not an angry relative. Now to love. There was also a bigger picture at play. William had taken charge of an estate of staggering value, and in his very first year he wanted to prove he was serious. In only his first year in charge of the duchy's massive portfolio, William, at 42, showed that he meant business, starting with cost-cutting. Trimming long-standing arrangements was part of signaling a new era, one where nothing was automatic simply because it had always been that way. Now to love. Perhaps most telling was his sensitivity to how things looked from the outside. A future king has to think constantly about public perception, and William reportedly thinks about it a great deal. According to a source, he is described as tougher than his father, obsessed with efficiency and also with avoiding scandals, including any hint of nepotism. Keeping the Queen's sister on the payroll, however talented she was, carried exactly the kind of optics a modern monarchy is nervous about. In an age where every payment can become a headline, employing a close relative of the Queen was a risk in itself. Now to love. So from William's side, the decision was less a personal snub and more a calculated statement of values. He wanted a leaner operation, clear justifications for every pound spent, and no vulnerability to accusations of favoritism. Annabel's contract, for all its history and quality, sat awkwardly against those goals. But intentions and impact are two different things. William may have seen a clean business decision. Others inside the family, especially those closest to Annabel, saw something that felt a lot more personal. And that gap between how William meant it and how it landed is exactly what turned a quiet accounting line into a story about tension at the very top of the royal household. Every decision has an echo, and this one echoed straight into the heart of the family. Because no matter how carefully William framed it as business, the people affected were not spreadsheets. They were his stepmother and her beloved sister. The reported reaction was not warm. Some royal coverage suggested the move landed badly with those closest to the king and queen, describing a decision that had caused friction at a sensitive time. According to that framing, the timing stung, coming as the family was already navigating the strain of the king's health. Whether every detail of that emotional picture is accurate is impossible to confirm from the outside, and it is worth treating anonymous source claims with some caution. But the sense of ripples was real enough to reach the press. Yet here the story takes an important turn, one that the loudest headlines often skipped. When royal experts examined what had actually happened, they pushed back hard on the idea of a dramatic sacking. One royal editor stated plainly that William had not fired the Queen's sister, explaining that Annabel is a well-established interior designer who had been working across duchy properties, and that William had simply taken her off the payroll now that he had taken over. The same expert added a calming verdict. She said the change caused a few ripples in some headlines, but she did not think there was anything untoward about it. Hello, hello. The reality of the sisters' bond also cut against the drama. This was not a family fracturing. Annabel remains close to Camilla and has spoken publicly about how devoted Charles is to her sister, calling him her rock and describing the couple as opposites who work brilliantly together. A single contract decision was never going to unravel a lifetime of loyalty between two sisters who grew up sharing everything. Hello. And crucially, Annabel did not simply vanish from royal life. The door stayed open. She continued to be considered for work when the right projects came along, with the king and queen reportedly keen to keep her involved in suitable ways. Her talent had not stopped being valuable just because one payroll arrangement had ended. Her legacy across the royal estates, the cottages, the lodges, the carefully designed interiors, remained exactly where she had left it. So what looked at first glance like a palace power struggle turned out to be something quieter and more human. A new duke, eager to modernize and protect the monarchy's image, made a hard-nosed decision. A close-knit family felt the sting of it, and in the end, the relationships that mattered survived intact. The truth was less explosive than the rumors, but in some ways more revealing, a small window into how the next generation intends to run one of the oldest institutions on Earth, balancing efficiency, image, and the delicate ties of family all at once.